Okay, so welcome to the Climate Couch here in Frome, Bath Theatrical, wonderful establishment. And my guest today is James Levelle, adventurer. Well, there's probably lots of things, filmmaker, and I'm sure you're going to tell us about all of your journeys and all of your activities. So
sure thing.
Maybe a brief introduction to start off with, and perhaps we'll then explore a bit.
All right, okay. Well, I've made my way in life as a filmmaker, as you said. There did come a point, of course, where I had to get a job, and the way my mind works, it asked the question, how can I get paid to do the coolest stuff possible? What is cool? What do I love doing? You know, I want to travel, I want to explore, I want to meet cool people, I want to learn.
Yeah.
Documentary filmmaking seems to tick those boxes, so I thought, well, I'll go do that, and I did.
And did you, so maybe school-wise, is that something that you were already thinking about? Did you already, because it's interesting, isn't it? The technology we have today, actually, with your phone and elsewhere, you can do it almost from the get-go, can't you? There's no potential restrictions. What did you get early into the filming, or not, or was that something which came a little later?
No, I was made aware of the world of film through my father because he directed commercials. So I was always fascinated as a kid by his homework. As a director, well, the homework he brought home was actually he would sketch his own storyboards. So, you know, he'd have the little boxes and
to go through the commercial, to actually tell the story.
So he'd be sketching it out, and so he was sketching out these stories, and so I used to sit and watch him do that, and I thought it was very cool. And when I got older, I would visit him on some of the sets, and I thought that was all very good. And so that was my introduction to the world of film. And prior to having to get a job, so like, you know, during sort of school holidays, university holidays and whatnot, I would return to London and go and work as a runner for production companies, making ads and pop promos. So that was how I knew of that world. But I never thought about it in the sort of context of like, I'm going to go into a career in this. And of course, actually, when that question did come up, I absolutely didn't want to go into that type of filmmaking. That was very clear to me. That advertising and music videos were interesting, but they didn't really capture my imagination.
Right.
Advertising, no. It was one of those things where it's like, I know I definitely don't want to do that, but what do I want to do? So
but I guess it then helped with the tools, didn't it? You then started to have the tools and the wherewithal and at least a better understanding of making something, I guess. It may not be the thing that you wanted, but...
Yeah, I think it was more like an opening my eyes to that world, really, that you could go and have a profession and get paid to make films. In terms of the actual craft, the practice, the know-how, the knowledge, not really. You know, that only got serious when I decided, I think I want to do this thing, and then, as with pretty much everything that I do, I went at it hammer and tong, and you know, grabbed the bull by the horns. I borrowed people's cameras. I, you know, got a laptop to put an edit program on. I taught myself to film and edit, and hop, skipped and jumped in some sort of lowly TV jobs until the first opportunity popped up where someone went, well, okay, show us what you've made. If you want to come make films with us, show us what you made. And I'd made these, in many cases, quite silly little short films off my own back. But I had something to show, and I showed them that, and they went, you clearly know what you're doing. I kept my mouth firmly shut, and got the job, and then learned on the job. And my first kind of break, I suppose, really cutting my teeth in a documentary context was when I was offered the job of in-house filmmaker at a fantastic human rights and environmental NGO called the Environmental Justice Foundation, and they needed a filmmaker, and I came on board to do that, and within weeks I was sent off to India to start making a documentary about child labour in, you know, the cotton fields and sort of the problems of fast fashion and deadly pesticides. It was full on. It was straight in the deep end, which is the way I like to work.
Did you have any doubts? because I guess like all these things, as you say, maybe it's different between sometimes male and female and background, and as you said, you grabbed things by the horn, you just went for it, and I guess you found your way and you delivered, and you've sort of moved. But sometimes it is quite difficult to make that first, and you've got to have a lot of confidence sometimes. Or did you have people supporting you, mentoring, or was it down to you?
I don't think I've ever had a mentor. I always quite liked the idea of a mentor and never really got one. I felt like I just had to sort of blaze my own trail. And doubt-wise, no, I don't think I ever had any doubts. I just don't think my mind really went into that space. It's just very focused
on the mission.
Yeah, it's just like, what do you want to do? Okay, let's go do it. And the idea that it wouldn't be possible, it didn't compute, wouldn't make sense, because why would it not be possible? You know, with hard work and the right opportunities and a bit of luck, you know, and how it would work out, you know, I didn't know, but I knew that it was entirely possible. So I never had any doubts. I just didn't know where it was going to go or exactly how it would go. I think, you know, some of that's nature, some of that's nurture, but you know, my folks, my parents have always been very supportive, so I'm, you know, massively thankful for that. Went to a decent school that certainly kind of tried to instill confidence in us, but yeah, I've just always been up for it, really. I don't think sort of doubt. I'm not generally a doubting person. I sort of go the other way. I'm in the space of like, I'm more comfortable in the space of pure imagination, actually, and that mental alchemy of conjuring up
art of the possible.
Yeah, exactly, the possible. And what do you want to like manifest out of that sort of ether, out of that world of possibility, infinite possibilities, and I probably wouldn't have spoken about it like that when I was getting started, but that's the gist of it.
So from there then, so if we have a bit of a canter through that, so India, the initial work with the charity, and the next stage. I mean, I've got a list of things down here around hitchhiking around South America, frozen wilds of Alaska. We got hurricanes. So I guess from India, it's.
Oh well, I was with the charity for a wee while. Did a bunch of work with them, which is great. The next gig they sent me off to film pirates, illegal pirate fishermen, to be specific, off the coast of West Africa, and that was wicked. Yeah, it was dangerous. Yeah. India was dangerous too, because you know, those nasty characters that were trafficking kids around and you know, organising child labour in fields and spraying deadly pesticides at the same time. Obviously, we're not particularly keen on someone going down there and filming it. Yeah. And we were in the middle of, like, you know, rural Andhra Pradesh, so we had to be quite careful with that too. That was proper Slumdog Millionaire stuff. That was like my first intro to India, you know. Everyone was like so excited that I was going, you know. Oh, James, India, that's just so wonderful. You know, the spices.
There are not many volunteers, is that what you're saying?
And I went straight into basically the worst scenes of Slumdog Millionaire. It's just like, oh my God, this is horrific. Yeah, then went and filmed Pirate Fisherman off the coast of Sierra Leone and a few other gigs. India, the sort of the yang to my yin, or yin to the yang of that sort of dark side of India was balanced when, after working for the NGO for a year or so, I found myself in the absolutely perfect place at the right time to direct a series for National Geographic. So that was my first directing gig for them.
So you got that on the back of the previous. Were you already looking, or did they just see some of your?
Well, this is just the weird and wonderful way that life works.
Just things
I had been asked to kind of conjure out of nothing a commercial for a wildlife trade sort of awareness charity that was based in Asia, and without getting into the details, they'd run some kind of a competition, and the competition had been for someone to come up with a script for their next PSA, you know, their public service announcement kind of ad, where it's like, you know, don't buy wildlife products type thing for the Asian people. And there was a script that had won it, and this needed to be made, and there wasn't anyone to make it, and it just landed on my desk, and it was like, can you just get this done? And I'm like, all right, yeah, cool, I'll make the commercial.
Well, Dad's done, so hang on, we've got some experience here.
Yeah, I was like,
yeah, we can.
I think I can make this happen, and so that was good fun. It was the idea was that there was this animal encyclopedia, all in Chinese. So the encyclopedia was Chinese characters, right? You know, for the animals, and that as the sort of script went through, it went, we're losing all this wildlife and blah blah blah, and so the characters were getting crossed out was the idea, and I thought this is quite a nice idea, and I just
visual as well as yeah.
So I did how can we notch this up to 11, you know, and so I got a traditional Chinese book made from, like, you know, where they sort of like fold together like an accordion. Got 2 of those made with all the characters in of, like, you know, tiger and elephant and turtle and stuff. Yeah. And then I thought, well, we can't just have a pen scratching them out. We've got to have a calligraphy brush. And, like, what if it's not ink? What if it's blood? I was like, let's go to town. So
your imagination.
yeah. So I did that, and then I had and to shoot it really beautifully, like artfully, with like prime lenses and all that jazz.
Yeah.
Because, you know, bear in mind I've been doing documentaries, so it was more about having a smaller kind of camcorder and, you know, being versatile and whatnot. I wanted a really spectacular filmic look with smooth moves and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So I enrolled the help of a friend of a friend, actually, that came through the advertising world, and they had a little production company that did documentaries. A very talented sort of director and cameraman called Adam, and he came and helped me film it, right? And so we shot this thing, and it was wicked. It had like the you know, hand coming through and splashing. And here's the really cool thing, actually, that I forgot to mention. So in terms of really notching it up to 11, you know, we went way past 11. This is super cool. I got an old friend of my dad's. I asked, he's an animator, classic animator, hand drawn.
Right.
Jerry Hibbert is his name, and he agreed very kindly to animate the animals. So when tiger was mentioned, you saw tiger on the page, and then it transformed into the characters as the brush came through and sploshed it with blood. It was very cool. Anyway, so I made this, and it looked really great. And Adam had his company, and he saw the end product and kind of got wind of the work that I'd been doing. They were the guys who'd got the series commission for National Geographic. They knew nothing about the illegal wildlife trade. I knew loads because of who I'd been working with.
Right.
And they went, would you be interested in directing it? And I was like, yes. So that was that. So I went off.
Mission.
Yeah, so I went off to India with Adam and Adam Docker, and we went and filmed wild tigers in Ranthambore National Park in Rajasthan. It was just like, I mean, medicine, incredible, proper Jungle Book stuff. And then went and did some actually pretty hairy undercover investigations with the team that we were filming. They were the centre of the story, called Environmental Investigation Agency. Really cool, brave, legendary people who would launch these investigations whereby they would track the criminals behind the illegal, organised international criminal networks. Yeah. You know, smuggling all of these animal products.
With everything else that comes with that, I guess. Reference to the danger, it's all linked in,
drugs, guns, human trafficking. Yeah, exactly. So very dangerous people.
Because it's another commodity, I guess, in the end, isn't it?
For them, it's an absolute winner, because they have all of these networks alive and working, and if they get caught smuggling illegal wildlife, they just get a slap on the wrist. It's like, don't do that, that's naughty. The profit margins on the illegal wildlife are huge. I think they're almost as big as drugs. So of course it's a no-brainer. So it really is, it's dangerous people, and I think that in many cases often the authorities and the police are struggling to catch up, because, I mean, crikey, imagine you're making that much money and
And
police
the
have
risk-
budgets, and
And the risk is so low, I guess, of the penalty associated. And
so we were up against those guys,
Oh, right. Yeah.
going undercover, and that was terrifying. In China, which was the sort of the end line of the tiger skins for that story, we were in China and then Tibet, and we had like secret police on our tail and stuff, and our rooms were being bugged, and it was just like, oh, this is really, really,
so you had a film about the film, shouldn't you?
stressful.
This is
So stressful.
MI5 type of or undercover.
Yeah, it's a
Quite a
cloak and dagger.
frightening, I'm sure. For,
Very stressful. That's the word that keeps coming into my mind. Stressful. Very stressful.
you can't rest anywhere.
No, and not until we got back from. Oh, I'll tell you. So just to top that one off. So the investigators. There we were in Tibet, and the investigators were trying to find out who the big buyers were of these tiger skins. Who the main buyers.
Yeah.
And the investigator went in to one of these traders' places down a dark alley and through these like doors. I mean, proper like sketchy stuff. And he had a secret camera in his button, and he's filming the whole thing. He's wearing a wire. Like he's literally.
It's like one of those. He's got a wire.
Yeah, he's literally wearing a wire, and there's the camera. And he goes in. Anyway, comes out. And we're like, thank goodness, we meet him in the minivan. We're driving off, and so we're like V. Can't say his full name.
No.
We're like, V, what happened? He's being really, really quiet, and he's like, I'll show you when we get back to the hotel, but we better not look at this in the hotel room, so we'll go onto the roof, because we're worried the rooms were bugged.
Okay.
Plugs the camera into the computer and watch the footage back. And he sketches through to this point where he's asking the trader, who's the big buyer of these skins?
The big question.
Who's the big buyer? And he's very, very clever, doing it in a way where it's like encouraging them to be sort of all kind of boastful and bravado. So this is a wonderful skin. It's very expensive. I mean, you must have very exclusive clientele. Who are the big buyers? Who are the big buyers? Oh, the big buyers. Well, it's the Chinese army. And to which V on camera goes, sorry, who? And he goes, yeah. It's the army. So basically, the guys running the fricking country, like
buying the
and we've just got the video evidence of this. So we're all just like, bloomin' heck, we've got to get out of here. We've got to go. So we packed up our bags, and the next day we were on the train out back into Western China, and then got a flight back. And I was pooing my pants, to be honest. I was like, until I got through immigration at Heathrow, I was like,
into a safe.
Yeah.
So what happened? I mean, you probably can't explain, but I guess the interesting thing then, as you say, you've got this footage, you've got this information. Where does it? Because trying to get it out and trying to get it through a safe means to deliver it to somebody who actually can also either interrogate but you probably can't get very far with the Chinese army, I'm sure.
Well, this is the thing.
Or can you just open it up and promote? I don't know what.
It's a long time since I was there in that space. But the Environmental Investigation Agency, of course, they use that as key evidence, and they go to the CITES, the what is that? The Commission in International Trade and Endangered Species, and they go to the official rendezvous and meetings, and they publish their reports and they publish the evidence. But there's in many cases there's very little that can be done. At the end of the day, the work has to be done in opening a dialogue, with the Chinese government, and actually bridging that gap and going, guys, we need to stop this. It's not cool. It's not like there's some kind of international police force, Team America style,
say no.
Coming in and going, it's like
you're stopping that.
Doesn't happen. So it's about the process then really needs to kind of begin in getting the conversation going. Look, can we stop this? And actually, that's where, for instance, the guys who I made the ad for with the book.
Yeah.
They're called Wild Aid, and they're all about kind of cultural change. So these PSAs that they did, you know, the one that I made, and they do ads with some of the most famous people in China. Like I can't remember their names.
Just to help to influence and to change and to educate and to...
So you'd have this I can't remember what his name was, this incredible Chinese basket player who's like 7 foot something, you know, super famous.
I think he's been in the NBA, hasn't he? And else, is he?
I should think so. Yeah. And he would be like there just going, you know, don't eat shark fin soup type stuff, you know, that kind of thing. And that's a really good way. That's like, you know, just to sort of change the culture and make it not cool. But like, I suppose, you know, back in the day, you know, it became quickly uncool thanks to, you know, campaigning efforts to buy real fur, and you know, it was just like, oh, you can't, that's not cool. Have to have real fur.
Just takes time. I always remember that with the catwalk, when one's being dragged down and the blood's being left on top of the catwalk. I mean, that's one of the things which certainly, but I suppose it's bringing it to the people really understanding, isn't it? It's making that connection.
You've got to join the dots, because it's like, you know, you're in the restaurant, you're going, well, look, it's a special occasion, you know, it's mum's birthday or it's some anniversary or whatever it is. And it's like, well, the celebratory, prestigious dish is shark fin soup. Yeah, we've ordered the shark fin soup.
Well, the rest of the shark here has just been,
you know, tossed into the sea and just, you know, killed. So it was like, you know, we live in such a disconnected, like, modern society. It's like you don't join the dots, like understanding where our food comes from, you know, huge problem. And the more we can do to sort of help people, you know, and ourselves understand that and be better connected, then the better it is. But you wouldn't, ordering a soup, to be fair, you know, necessarily expect to understand what goes on behind shark fin soup, and the fact that, like, you know, sharks are caught at sea in trawling nets and just have their fins lopped off and then still alive chucked back into the sea, you know, so that shark populations are decimated, and most of them around the planet
just
are now endangered
which
species.
is about this.
You know, you need to that needs to be put out there, and people just need to kind of know what they're doing, and then make the choice.
So you learnt a lot. You had various, sounds like certainly during those parts of your life, reference to exciting, challenging, scary. And then the next, I mean, the other side would be interesting to look at in a minute maybe is also, how do you keep, you think about filming, how do you keep your equipment? How do you make sure you get your batteries charged? How do you make sure you get, you know, that whole wherewithal? Maybe, you know, you're in Tibet, I mean, I guess you obviously find, or is it straightforward? Maybe I'm making it a bit more, it's straightforward.
In that context, it's relatively straightforward. I mean, you know, as long as you can find a power plug at the end of the day and charge everything up. Back then we were shooting on tapes and discs.
Okay, yeah.
So there wasn't the ingestion issue that we have today. So that was all relatively straightforward. I'd say. Yeah.
So after that, when did the hitchhiking to South? Is that something?
Where did we get to
later?
Then? What were we talking about there? Just China.
So we got to the sharks. We got to the fin.
Oh yeah. So then finished that series. Did survived that. Didn't get locked up by the Chinese, which is good. Went and did a illegal logging film, which was even more dangerous because the guys behind
Canada,
illegal.
America?
No, actually, it is all over the world, of course, but we were focused in not Cambodia, but in Vietnam and Laos.
Okay, that's another challenging area, maybe, or.
Well, yeah, it bloody was, because it turned out that actually it was the Vietnamese army behind that too. So it was just like when we got there, we got the goods, and we're just like, oh no, not again. They're not going to like this. They're not going to like.
There's a running theme here.
They're not going to like this.
Yeah, the army or government behind.
Exactly. And you're in the middle of a forest, you know,
with no protection, with probably little communication.
It's like so easy for you just to disappear.
Yeah.
That was also challenging.
Do you have minders? I mean, how does it work? I guess you have local.
We just worked with locals and had to keep our wits about us and have a various sort of like. Checking in sort of like workflows and routines and whatnot.
So you bilingual? Are you several languages?
What, Vietnamese?
I don't know. I don't know what you
that
can
would have been good. That would have been good. I do have other languages, French, Spanish and Italian, but they're not helpful in China or or Tibet or Vietnam or Laos, unfortunately. Maybe a bit of French in Vietnam, anyway. So did that. Did a whaling film that was bonkers. And after that, combination of me trying to get more projects of that ilk off the ground, and just banging my head against a brick wall because I didn't understand how the TV industry worked, and also. Oh,
you mean actually to raise funds and actually to have?
Yeah.
Okay.
And also I didn't realise that you just needed how important it was to have the actual personal connections and the relationships, which is fine. That is how life is. But secondly, I didn't realise that making films like that is not easy to do. It's not popular because, of course, they're not commercial. You know, they're not.
So it doesn't drag your sponsors.
It's not commercial entertainment. It's not mainstream stuff. So, so I was struggling to do that, and I got to a point where I was a bit frustrated. And then I got a call from Discovery Channel asking if I wanted to head out to Alaska, basically, and film these guys that had a little sort of family gold mine in the mountains of southeast Alaska. And I was like, well, that sounds adventurous. I mean, I didn't see myself filming some gold mining, however kind of small scale it might be, but all right, let's throw the dice.
Do it. Yeah.
And that was an incredibly exciting and educational experience. Like the education I got in the craft of storytelling, and also just to live in that part of the world, the panhandle of Alaska, in the fjordland, with mountains that just reach up to the sky out of the sea, with fjords and braided rivers and glaciers and bald eagles and grizzly bears and black bears and wolves and moose and salmon runs, and just I was in seventh heaven, and I loved it. And that took me into a much more adventure-focused space rather than issue-based. Even though the issue-based stuff had been, by its nature, adventurous, I went much more into the kind of just adventure, and kind of extraordinary people, wild people in wild places.
That sounds almost like a bit of a life-changing experience. That the gold mine in Alaska to start off with.
I'd say it's all life-changing. It was nice. It was very positive, and I didn't have to worry about getting locked up by the Chinese army, which is nice. So that was good, and I really enjoyed that, and that took me, as I say, into this kind of space where I ended up doing quite a lot of survival, and I went and did this wonderful trip with a survival expert and adventurer, really nice chap called Ed Stafford, and we went off to Siberia together, and that was one of the most enjoyable filmmaking missions I ever went on, and it was his kind of mission to try and find this mysterious crater in the middle of the Siberian taiga forest, and it was freezing, and we sort of like stayed with an indigenous Evenki reindeer herding people in their camp, and we went reindeer sledding on frozen rivers, and shot AK-47s and went ice fishing, and it was very, very cool. I loved it. And then the thing is, Ed's a real expert in self-filming. So he rose to fame, going and doing extraordinary survival things, but filming himself completely on his Todd. He was the first person to walk the Amazon, and he filmed himself doing it.
Just go out there.
Yeah. And so whilst I was with him and filming with him, and we were doing the adventure together, and I was helping craft the story, ultimately, like, Ed's final bit of the mission to go find the crater, he was filming himself, and he was on his own, So it was really interesting working with Ed in that context, and seeing how he did that, how he filmed himself, because funnily enough, not too long after that, I got a call from Discovery Channel saying, James, we've got this idea for a show. We've got this American adventurer character called Rob Greenfield, and he's all into low impact living and sustainability and stuff. And I was like, cool, that's right up my street. And he's like, yeah, we think you'd be great to sort of like work with him. So we're going to send you out to San Diego, where he's based at the moment, living in his little tiny house, and we're just going to sort of like see how you guys get along. And I'm like, well, okay, whatever, free trip to San Diego. Let's do it.
Yep.
So out I went, and I met up with Rob, and we had a day doing this trial run of what our adventure together might look like. And the idea was that we would, if we sort of got along, travel, I think it was over 6,000 miles through Latin America, 6 different countries over the course of 10 weeks, with absolutely no money whatsoever, no cash, no credit card, no mobile phone.
As you said on your website, it lists down actually you had nothing.
Yeah, zilch. And so it's like, oh right. So I had this day with Rob, and it's like, how's this going to work, Rob? Like, show me how it's done. So we went like dumpster diving and things like that, and sort of foraged food from people's gardens. Yeah. But the thing was, I was filming with him, but then someone was filming me filming him, because the idea was this was a chemistry test, and Discovery Channel wanted to see how we got on. So I had a fun time with Rob and hung out in San Diego, and I came home and just cracked on with life and whatnot.
Yeah.
And then I got this call from Discovery, and they went, James, we love the show idea. We love this whole free ride, traveling no money. We love Rob and we love you. And I'm like, oh, that's nice. Thanks very much. And they went, yeah, and we want you to be in the show. And I was like, what? And they're like, no, we want you to be in the show with Rob. So the two of you together.
Yeah.
And I'd always been behind the camera. I'm very happy with that. That's quite it's a controlling
get
position.
out there.
And they're like, right, you're going to go in front. And I ummed and ahed about it for a bit. I was like, I'm not sure about this. And I thought, sod it. Let's go for it.
You didn't automatically thought you...
No.
Okay.
No.
You didn't think it was a big break from getting in front? You're quite happy to be...
I wasn't looking for a big break to get in front of the camera. No. I was very happy where I was. And I think that having, been a sort of a relatively successful sort of director, at that stage, whilst I was always kind with my contributors and stuff, I understood that the controlling element of directorial process. There's you will be there. Then in the edit, of course, you will ask certain questions, potentially leading questions, and you'll be looking for various story points, and then you'll be there in the edit, and you will cut things up as you wish. And so I know how that works, and you are making yourself quite vulnerable, very vulnerable, actually. So I was definitely hesitant, and I thought, screw it, let's go for it. Let's see what happens. And that
was that good?
That was a life-changing adventure. Yeah.
So how did you? We probably haven't got time to go. We'll have to have several, I think. How did it manifest itself in the end? Then did you just sort of, right? You're off. You're walking. You're hitching. You're...
Yeah, right, you're off. We met, Rob and I met in Rio de Janeiro airport, and set off, and we hitchhiked out of the airport. We got some kind lady dropped us off at a favela, and was like, oh crikey, and everyone was like, oh, you're in a dodgy favela. And then this other lady came along. She's like, what are you guys doing here? We're like, oh, we're doing this trip, traveling no money, blah blah. She's like, oh, you must come and stay with me, and we were off. And the trip went on like that. It was completely bonkers. I mean, to wake up, I think it was 72 days straight, 72 days, and for every one of those 72 days, you wake up and you've got no idea where you're going to sleep that evening. You've got no idea how you're going to get further down the road. You have no idea how you're going to eat. It's just a strange but wonderful way to be, but not for 72 days. I think 2 weeks would have been fine. But we did it, and it was extraordinary. There was a lot of pressure. We were very much just the two of us, Rob on our own, and me responsible for doing all of the filming. Yeah. He'd pick up a camera occasionally, but really it was all on me. So I was under quite a lot of pressure, on top of the fact that I was just trying to survive. Yeah. And we had a few bust-ups. And then there was a major bust-up in Peru, which I didn't see coming. There was a chase crew that followed us. So I had a tracker in my backpack, so that the chase crew would have a rough idea of where we were. Right. and I had an emergency mobile phone that I could contact them on. That I couldn't use for anything else.
Yeah.
And that was so that every morning or evening, depending on what worked out best, they could rendezvous with me and swap out my camera batteries and take the rushes and give me new cards, and then jump back in their car and off they went.
And you're off.
Not even a sip of water type stuff. Not that I wanted it, because I was all up for the authenticity and doing this thing for real, you know. And once you're really committed, it's like, we'll see this through.
Yeah.
But Rob had emailed them because, you know, one of the things we could do was arriving in various towns. You could go into hotel lobbies, you know, and just jump on a computer and email away. And he contacted them and let them know that he was really unhappy and wanted to have a break. And so they conspired behind my back to fix it so that one of the chase crew would then go with Rob and film him doing his thing, and I would then be completely and utterly on my own. And I discovered this one morning in Peru, and Rob wakes me up and he's like, "Can you want to come outside and have a chat?" And I'm like, "Yeah, sure." And he's like, "You better bring your camera." And I'm like, "Well, I always bring the camera. What's going on here?" And you know, buttoned on, and he's like, "I think we should go separate ways." And the whole thing's captured, you know, there in the moment, and there's a GoPro on top of my camera filming my face, you know, and you can see my face. I'm just like,
because there was no indication of any.
How does this even work? How is this going to work? And he's like, I've got, you know, one of the chase crews going to follow me, and we'll meet again at the Ecuadorian border. And that was it. So then I was completely and utterly on my Todd in Peru, and I had the best time ever. It was wicked. It was so cool. It was like I'd been you know, sort of let loose. It was really brilliant. And Rob had a great time too. I think it was really good for both of us to have that time apart. But that was the most extraordinary element, because at that stage I was completely on my own with no money and just my camera, and I travelled almost the entire way through Peru to the Ecuadorian border. And I joined a family on actually it was the day before Day of the Dead, Day of the Living, at a gravesite, and helped them restore and clean up their gravesite to honour their ancestors, and drank beer with them. I went free diving for octopuses off the coast with these fishermen. I mean, it was just extraordinary. It's like, and I've got no money, and I'm just rocking around. I'm just turning up and going, "Hi, can I help in any way?
What can I do?
Yeah, what can I do?"
Yeah.
And I had an amazing time. So it was one of the most exhausting, challenging, difficult experiences of my life, but it was also mind-bogglingly brilliant, transformational experience. And Rob and I reunited at the Ecuadorian border, and we finished the trip together, and we got it done together.
Was it all right coming back together?
Yeah, we absolutely.
Because you could almost have said, "Well, actually, that's it then." But you didn't.
No, we both
were so committed at that stage anyway.
No, we'd started together, and we wanted to finish together,
right.
and you know, that was important. That was important to both of us, and you know, Rob's a really good guy, and we were just in very pressured circumstances, and so I think, you know, you make the extra effort. You know, reconciliation is like, you know, we need more of that. We don't have enough stories that, you know, celebrate or even sort of just explore the power and importance of reconciliation. And gosh, we need those stories more than ever now. Not that I'm saying that Free Ride was some epic story of reconciliation, but yeah, of course we wanted to get back together, and it was a magical experience.
Have you done any books related to those? I don't know if I've picked up or not. Are you not capturing, or you haven't? It's mostly film, obviously, through your. It's
mostly been film, but there's definitely a few books in me. Definitely a few books in me. It's one of these things where I can just there's a freaking library in my imagination. I'm like, which one to pick? So I think like any journey, and this being an exploration of you know, my writing skills and literary you know, sort of strengths. Take that first step, and then keep going. So I haven't I've been dodgering around the first steps, sort of going, ooh, what, and I just need to climb.
So you know it's there, something's there, but you just need to.
But I've got a lot on as well at the moment. So don't we all? But there's I'm working on a lot of stuff locally that's keeping me very, very busy. But I think the more the more one comes into oneself, the more energized you can be. And if I could only get a little bit more organized, maybe I could actually start juggling a few more things.
So that's local, as in Bath local or Southwest
Bath,
local?
yeah, Bath Bristol
Yeah.
sort of locality on the Avon there.
Yeah.
On my canal boat. Yeah.
So I'm sure we can't go. The hurricane, that sounded quite an interesting. Is there a little bit you can tell us about your 160 mile an hour jump into a fire truck or whatever it was?
Well,
that was almost an end of life.
The story almost ended there. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. That was so the BBC and UK TV actually together commissioned this series, this hurricane chasing series, and it was my job in the series to essentially in each of the locations where the hurricane or typhoon, if you're in the southern hemisphere, was due to strike, I would have to find some local people who were refusing to evacuate for whatever reason, and team up with them to tell the story of what it takes to survive the deadliest storms on the planet. So it was pretty risky business.
That does sound
it was pretty risky business. The first few typhoons were all right. They're in Japan actually, and Japan's so switched on, and the typhoons were kind of category 1, 2. So I mean, this weather like that would absolutely decimate everything here, but down there they're quite well prepared. And that was all quite exciting. And then there was a hurricane in America that was it looked like a monster as it was coming in to hit sort of South Carolina, but then went up to North Carolina, and that looked like it was going to just flatten everything. But it kind of did this weird thing where when it got to the actual sort of the coast landfall, it sort of squidged and sort of stopped moving and just dumped lots and lots of rain, which actually was even worse, because then the flooding that they had was catastrophic. But it wasn't, in terms of sort of the wind power, it wasn't sort of the monster they were expecting. And so I'd done those, and that was all right. And I was like, yeah, these hurricanes are not too bad. And then we were umming and ahhing about this category, sort of this hurricane that was potentially forming off the coast of Florida and the Gulf of Mexico, and we were sort of waiting to see whether it would kind of become a hurricane. It was a tropical sort of storm depression thing.
So are you in country at the moment?
I'm back in the UK at this stage.
Oh right.
Yeah, because ready to go. So I had
Deploy
a bag packed,
wherever you might be.
Yeah, I had a bag packed, ready to go at any second.
Yeah.
And then we decided, sod it, let's go. Before it was categorised a hurricane, we were like, we're going to take the chance. So myself and the team who were there were two other filmmakers, Caroline and Ollie, and between those two, they would one of them would go with our storm chaser character, Josh Morgan, who was like an expert, and the other one would go with the emergency services. But it was myself who was always finding locals and telling that story. So we all jumped on the plane and we went out to Florida, and actually as we boarded the plane, we got the notification, this has now been categorised, Hurricane Michael is a hurricane and making a beeline for the south coast of Florida. We're like, we're on.
Yeah.
So we flew into Florida, and we drove down to Panama City on the coastline there. And it's just one of those things. It's like, you're in like a Hollywood disaster movie, you know. We're in our car and we're driving down the freeway, and obviously in the States we're on the right side, and there's just, open road, absolutely no cars heading in this direction, completely free. On the other side, gridlock, absolute gridlock. Everyone's getting the hell out of Dodge because there's a freaking hurricane coming.
Yeah.
And we're heading straight for it, and it's just like your hair's tingling. You're like, this is the bad move, isn't it? Anyway, but that's what we were all about. And we got there, and I found in the harbour, a local fisherman and his wife, Stephen and Stephanie, and they explained to me that they were staying to protect their fishing yacht from the storm because they didn't have anywhere safe to sort of like moor it, and they were going to put it in this tree-sheltered bay where it weathered storms before. And then the plan was that they would stay with the boat, adjusting the lines as the sort of the sea level rose with the storm surge, and just kind of stay on top of that until the weather conditions got too dangerous. Then get off the boat, jump into the pickup truck, and drive the 10 minutes to their house and hunker down. I thought, well, that's a fairly straightforward plan. I think I can work with that. Let's do it. So I teamed up with them, and I was keeping a track of the storm as well on a storm radar app. And it was getting pretty blustery, and I was on the shoreline in this sort of tree-sheltered bay in a bayou inlet, and Stephen was on the boat. Stephanie was with me. He's adjusting the lines, and that's all sort of going on. I'm kind of filming it, and then suddenly there was this like almighty, just kind of explosive crack to my left, and I spun around, and this tree just comes crashing down and lands like feet away from me and Stephanie, and it's like, oh shit, and then like more gusts hit us, you know, and it's like, it's very windy, but you get these gusts, suddenly you just get these like, and we're just like, whoa, and we're like, oh my goodness, we're like, we've got to get out of here, like, and like I'm checking the app, and the app says the storm is still you know, way out at sea, and it's like, anyway, we've got to go. Stephen gets off the boat, and we jump in the car. And then we start making we just pedal to the metal, heading to their house. And by this stage, like it's really kicking off now, and trees are down everywhere. We're like, oh shit, have we left it too late? Like, what's going on? And basically, what had happened was that the storm radar didn't update fast enough, so then the hurricane was moving faster and harder than anyone had predicted, and it was almost upon us. And we were like, shit. So the car's getting rocked around. And then it's like, can barely see anything. It's like, slam on the brakes, like, stop. And the trees have come crashing down and blocked the road. We're like, right, back up. Let's find another way back to the house. And we're driving around. And the same thing happens again. It's like, hit the trees blocked the road. Oh my God. And we're like, sort of trying to find another route back. And then it's like, going for it. And the visibility is disappearing. We're like, sort of can see.
Everything's going
down everywhere. And it's like, whoa. And things are flying through the air and hitting the car, and it's bang, 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 and it's pretty terrifying. And then it's the same thing. It's like, whoa, stop. And this time the power pylons had come crashing down and were blocking the road with like live wires swinging across. And I'm like, shit.
Yeah.
And I turned to Stephen, and all this is on camera. I'm just filming the whole thing, and I'm like, is there another way home? And he goes, no, that was it. Shit, he says, and we're like, oh my God, and he goes, we're going to die in this damn truck, and I'm like, we're fucking not, right, where, turn around,
it's got to be somewhere,
we've got to figure something out here,
Yeah.
So we start driving back into the suburbs, desperately looking for anywhere to shelter, and of course no one's around, and all the houses are boarded up, so we can't even get into someone's house. And then we spotted this local fire station. We thought, head for that. My God, this could be salvation if it's manned. Fire stations in the American South built to be hurricane proof because it's a hurricane zone. So we're like, and we get there. I'm out of the car before it's even stopped. I'm just running, and there's shit flying over my head, crashing into things. All of the cars parked up outside the fire station are already smashed to smithereens. Like, it's just like, I get to the back and banging on the door, and then these firemen like open the door, and they're like, "What the hell?" And we're like, and we get in, and we're like, thank God. And then we caught our breath, and we're like, right, we're saved. We're in the hurricane-proof shelter. This is somehow we're in the best possible place we could ever wish to be, until the ceiling tiles started plopping out and water started falling through. This is like, not long after getting in there, and a fireman comes running down from the first floor screaming, "Everybody get into the fire trucks now!" And we're like, what is going on? And like, so we get up and we move into the garage, and as we get into the garage where the fire trucks are, there's a gale blowing, and I'm like, camera rolling, and I look up,
the roof is gone,
and the roof is being ripped off the fire station.
So you had to get inside for protection to stop the
160 mile an hour winds. This hurricane had become the third most intense hurricane to ever hit the United States, and it was tearing this building apart.
And you went there to film,
and we were in it. Yeah. And so we jump in the fire trucks, and I got into and I couldn't get in the. I was like last person to try and get in the trucks, and I was like, oh God, this one's full, that one's full. And like a third truck, and they pull me in. And moments after I get in the fire truck, the garage doors, the roller shutter doors, ripped off at their hinges, and the hurricane came straight through alongside the fire trucks.
You'd have gone straight with it if you weren't in.
So we hunkered down in the trucks, and the garage doors were banging against the front of the trucks. But some bright spark had the foresight to actually bring bed mattresses from the sleeping quarters and stick them between the front of the truck and the roller shutters. So we were flush up against them. So it was just, but it was intense, but didn't smash the windows.
Yeah.
And there we stayed for I don't know how long. Felt like a while, and also not very long. It was a strange space to be in. But I accepted at that stage that if my time was up, my time was up. There was a kind of an acceptance, you know. It was kind of like, if I die here, I die here. I've had a good crack, like at least in trying to get to somewhere safe. I'm not going to be like on the front page of some paper going, idiot British filmmaker, you know, farts about
in the middle of the street,
farts about filming a boat, you know, when he should have been like, you know, in a
squashed by a lamppost or something.
Exactly.
Or whatever.
So I was like, well, at least that's not happened. You know, it was a funny kind of thing to be relieved about. But also, you know, I felt like I'd had a good life, and I was sort of at peace. I mean, it's a funny thing. And anyway, the hurricane was moving fast, so before too long, the eye wall, which was the most intense bit, had moved on.
Yeah.
And we climbed out of the fire trucks and left the fire station, and it was
just total devastation.
Total devastation, total apocalyptic destruction, and like nothing I'd ever seen before. And we then spent a week filming with the emergency services. That was pretty intense. Before we got note of a hurricane forming off the coast of Mexico, and
you went out there then?
We jetted straight down there, and I had to keep a young family safe in a hotel that was being smashed to smithereens on my own. Try and keep the kids distracted in a shelter that I made out of tables and chairs. That was like fairly full on, and then straight to the Philippines for a typhoon that pretty much like ripped a town hall apart with you know, and sort of destroyed an entire village. So it was a very, very intense experience, and it kind of stripped me to my core. And actually, it's something that I've reflected on a lot over the past few years. But it kind of was a very pivotal point, because it initiated a very dramatic, the beginnings of a very dramatic transformation in myself. That is ongoing, isn't everything, but
in relation to whether you wanted to carry on with that sort of, or your actual
my
priorities
entire life,
in your whole
entire life. Yeah.
What am I doing when you're in that fight? You think, what am I?
What am I doing? What am I doing? Who am I?
Yeah. What's the purpose?
What's the point? Yeah. So death is very good for that. I think. I'd had some near misses before, but this was something else. And I think when you come that close to death, it's very vitalizing.
Helps you to recalibrate, maybe.
Mm. Yeah. So we're very insulated, aren't we? Of course, like modern life from death. We try to pretend it doesn't exist. You know, people get old, we stick them in old folks' homes. Oh, I don't want to think about that. We're sort of. We just put it out of our minds,
But it's never far away.
It's never far away.
You never, sadly, you never know, do you?
That's, no, but it's that life and death. They come together. And actually, when I was doing free ride and on my own, and I met this family in a graveyard. Because I was in this town. This is actually the moment we split ways, Rob and I was like, what on earth am I going to do?
You're off.
And I'm walking through this town, and it's a ghost town. There's no one around. I'm like, this is terrible. Like, the one thing I need is other people, and there's no one here. Where is everyone? And I found them all in the cemetery. And I thought, what's going on here?
Because of the occasion.
Because they were getting ready to celebrate Day of the Dead. And I knew nothing about Day of the Dead, and I learned about Day of the Dead on that extraordinary adventure with no money, arriving, just looking to connect with people, and I was welcomed into this family, and we were there to celebrate their lost relatives, their ancestors, to remember them, and in so doing, bring the living together, the whole family, the extended family together. It was such a beautiful thing, and it was all around death. It was all about death, but it was beautiful, and it was vitalising, and it was a celebration, and it reminds you why it's so important to be alive. And are you alive? And are you living? Check in on your aliveness. How alive am I? So, we're shit at that. Our society is terrible at that. So that's one of the things that I certainly do with myself, check in on my aliveness, and encourage as many other people as possible to do in their own way. But stories are a great way to fire up people's imagination and get them thinking in different ways, and then encourage people to try something new, spice up your life. I mean, you don't need to go chasing hurricanes or travel with no money for 10 weeks. Everything's relative. For me, it's been quite extreme, but I'm very grateful for it, because whilst I've had many adventures since the hurricanes, that was a very pivotal moment that has led to a sort of an ongoing transformation and a recalibration of myself and my values, which were, I think, in the grand scheme of things, all right. They were okay. I cared about, I think, the right things to care about, or good things to care about, right or wrong necessarily. But I'm not sure I'd paid too much attention to the internal journey, and I've been so focused on the external journey. So that kind of that journey within, self-knowledge, all of that stuff. That's the real mountain to climb, and so I think that's what started to become clear to me bit by bit after the hurricane, where it's you can start paying attention to this now, and then it's whoa.
That's right. You don't bother this.
Yeah.
What about?
Yeah, and then it's whoa. Oh my God! Don't want to go there. It's you got to go there.
I don't want to go there. You got to go there.
The boy, no, inside. It's yeah, that's it. You call yourself an adventurer. You want a serious adventure? Journey within.
Start looking inside and see. Did you keep in contact with some of these people on your journeys or not? I mean, or was it just something that you say those you say that you connected with on your no credit cards, no money, what? I don't know how these. Because I always find it's difficult in life. You see lots of people. You see. So actually, I may never see them ever again in my life. But you might have a nice chat with them. You think?
Yeah,
it's quite.
I think that we'd always sort of exchange contacts and whatever it was, Facebook or Instagram or whatever it might be, or email. And you never know when you're going to bump into those people again, or whether when that correspondence might pick up again, or whatever it is. Yeah. But I think it's and for a little bit I sort of worried about sort of losing touch with people, but it's not. It's a silly thing to worry about, because the only thing to worry about, or not even worry but focus on, is actually the being present and the magic of those relationships, however brief they were, and that is the real magic. I mean, on all of my adventures, I would not have been able to achieve what I've achieved, that many would consider, impossible perhaps, or just too much, without the help of other people, without the help of strangers, and the relationships that we formed, even in just a matter of hours, have been. They've kind of enabled me to continue on my adventure, but that's kind of been the byproduct almost. The product was a very wonderful, heartfelt connection between two human beings, actually kind of sharing their stories and taking great sort of joy and pleasure in sharing. And I learned what hospitality means. It's not a mercantile exchange. It's a sharing. It's a
giving, loving, exchanging, caring.
I'm interested. Who are you? I'm interested
It's
in
about
you.
About people.
And I have all these things that I would love to share with you. What do you think of my family? What do you think of our cooking? What do you think of our village? I would like to see an outside perspective because I'm proud and I love these things and I want to share them with you. And it's like that's a joyous human thing.
And you don't necessarily need, in the scheme of things, much. It's about what you bring anyway, isn't it? It's not about material stuff necessarily, is it? So
Often I'd be there. Initially, I was like, I must try and give something back. I must, I was like,
what have I got? What have I found?
Yeah,
what have I got?
Can I wash the dishes? And I'd try and get up and wash the dishes. Slap down!
You're a guest.
How dare you? You're a guest. Sit there. You're not washing the dishes. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Thank you. Sorry.
Yeah.
Magic. Brilliant. People. Phenomenal. And I'm very lucky to have had those experiences, and it gives me an indomitable faith in humankind, despite the doom and gloom we get in the news all the time. It's not the whole picture. It's part of it, but it's not the whole thing.
And maybe that's why we do the Climate Film Festival. That's why we're trying to make things more visual, why we're trying to help people to connect and inspire, maybe through film or media or art. We haven't touched on climate yet. We probably need to talk about your race to the future, mate.
Well, basically, so I'd survived the hurricanes, and this process of sort of like re-evaluation started with what on earth can I do that's helpful in the context of the escalating climate chaos and climate crisis, because I've just barely survived climate chaos at its most extreme. Hurricanes are natural phenomenon, but they're going, more numerous and more powerful. So that's
you've been there. You've been in the
I've
front
been at the
line,
sharpest end of it, and I'm like, whoa.
So do I just walk away and carry on with normal life, or do I?
How'd you do that? I couldn't do that. So I was like, what am I supposed to do? And that was not obvious. So I came home, and at the end of 2018 and the beginning of 2019, I got my sort of aha moment, the inspiration, the spark, and that was the beginning of the youth climate movement, when hundreds of thousands of kids took to the streets and started making their voices heard, and it was extraordinary. And I was just watching this, and
school kids and others just getting out there, and
not organised by
the parents going, why are you at school? Well, I'm not going to school, I'm going to the protest.
Yeah, teachers as well. It was like they did it themselves, and I was just like, wow, this is amazing.
Real power.
Yeah, and I was like, this I can get behind. This I can get behind. What if I use the power of film to try and do everything I can to amplify their voices? So I was like, okay, need a journey. That's what I do.
You just suddenly thought you need a journey.
I need a journey. Where
can I go next?
Yeah, where shall I go? Because what I thought I could do is I thought I could go around and I could meet as many of these young people as possible, and I could go, look, Greta Thunberg, probably a big fan of yours, big fan of mine. She's helped inspire this movement. She goes to these climate conferences. She tells the politicians what for. I bet you'd like to do that. Yeah, yes, I bloody would, but I can't. It's like, well, give me your message, your climate message on camera now. I'll film that and I'll take that to the UN. I'll take your message on film. Yeah. So that was my idea. I was like, I'll meet as many kids as possible and collect all the messages and deliver them in a film to the UN. So that was the idea. But so that actually made the journey really simple too, because it was like, well, where's the next UN climate conference? It was in Chile, and I was like, wicked.
Somewhere nice and close.
I was like, great, that's miles away. That's cool.
It's not just down the road. Yeah, we want an adventure.
Exactly, we want an adventure. So that's really handy. That's like 9,000 kilometres or something mad, and you've got the Channel to deal with, and then the Atlantic Ocean as well. And the reason why the ocean's being so relevant was the challenge element of the trip was pretty clear to me too, because I was like, it'd be a bit daft to go on a climate adventure.
Can't fly.
I can't get on a plane if I'm doing a climate crisis adventure, so I'm going to try and do it fossil fuel free. And that meant cycling, sailing, electric trains, any sort of means of travelling that didn't directly, emit. Yeah. So that was Race for the Future. So that was the idea, and I set off in August 2019. and it was, one of the absolute most extraordinary and inspiring adventures of my life, and it continues to like inspire me and motivate me, and I speak to people about it. I was at a primary school this morning talking to kids about it all, and they loved it, which is frankly the only endorsement I need, that it was the right thing and worth doing, because it's all about them, and they were like fully into it. But it was an extraordinary trip, and it absolutely did not go according to plan.
And it can be. We can view it, can't we? It's out there. People can come and have is it on YouTube? It is on YouTube, isn't it?
Well, there is a link that I can share with people. It's in terms of sort of like broadcast options, limited, but I do have a private link that can be shared. But it was absolutely extraordinary, because without this kind of does give whatever. I was sailing across the Atlantic on a tall ship, as you do, and I was halfway across, and I still had it was more than halfway, so like another 2 weeks to sail, and I got a message through on my satellite tracker from the head of climate change at WWF, who was a friend, so serious guy, and I was like, this is nice to hear from him, and the message read, "Don't panic." And I was like,
was it the meeting's off?
I'm immediately panicking. So don't panic, but the climate conference in Chile has been cancelled and moved to Madrid, and I just bloody come from Madrid, and there I was on this sail ship travelling like 4 knots in the opposite direction. I was like, what on earth am I supposed to do with this? So it was the ultimate curveball, and that meant for the next 2 weeks, which was way too much time to think about stuff on the tall ship out in the middle of the Atlantic, some sort of soul searching about what the right thing to do was, and I figured I felt what the right thing to do was. I didn't know for sure until I got to Latin America, and when I arrived in Uruguay, I immediately teamed up with the young people there from Fridays for Future and went to a little demonstration, and I asked one of the ringleaders, a really inspiring, amazing young woman called Clara. I said, "Clara, they've cancelled the freaking conference. Like, what's the point? What am I supposed to do?"
Yeah.
And she didn't bat an eyelid, and she went, "You continue this journey. You finish the job that you started, because we need our voices heard even more than ever now. We've been sidelined by the UN. This is the most important thing you can do for us. Please continue the journey to Chile." And the UN won't be there, but there will be other climate festivals being organised by the mayor and other organisations. Yeah. So forget the UN. They've forgotten us, but we need you. Please, complete the journey and record our messages. So I was like, okay, I'll do it. And then that led to me becoming the first person, just cutting a long story short, to drive an electric car across Argentina. That was considered totally impossible.
Oh, was it?
Because there's no charge points. That was the most wonderful and remarkable just demonstration of, again, kindness of strangers and people coming together and hearing about what I was trying to do and just making it work and going, we'll help you charge the car.
And in Argentina, which may be challenging at parts.
Oh no, they loved it. They loved it. They loved it. And this crazy gringo driving an electric car through the middle of the Pampas. They're like, what is this? This is mad. We love it. And it was brilliant, because like local press got involved, and it really picked up a buzz. And I was sort of like driving through these tiny one-horse towns, and it was great. We made it to Mendoza, and then had to cycle up and over the Andes, 12,500 feet. Yeah, that was punchy. And I got to Santiago, but just before I got to Santiago, I got a text message from Clara saying, give us a call. So I did. Clara back in Uruguay, who I'd met and had said, you continue the journey. She said, James, you'll never guess what's happened. I've been invited to travel to Madrid to represent the youth of Uruguay at the climate conference in Madrid. And I was like, oh my goodness, you can deliver the message. I don't need to be there. It's even better. You do it. She was like, I'd love to. I'd be honoured. I'm like, this is fantastic. I'd be honoured. This is great. So I arrived in Santiago. I found this massive stage, like a rock star stage in this park, this climate festival, and the biggest, most successful, amazing blagging session of my life. After speaking in a few different tents and hop, skipping and jumping, I managed to convince the organisers to put me on the main stage. So I had my my rock star moment, and I delivered the climate messages film there at the stage. And meanwhile, Clara at the UN in Madrid, after all, delivered it there. So we double whammy, got it to Santiago, finished the journey, completed the mission, got all the messages, and despite the total impossibility of it all, got it seen by a young person, thanks to a young person who'd been pivotal in me continuing the journey. She was the one that delivered it to the UN.
And they're pivotal going forward, aren't they? At the end of the day, that's
definitely.
I mean, fantastic. I mean, you hopefully have inspired. Well, you'll continue to inspire tens or thousands or millions, I'm sure. So what's next? Well, we probably haven't got time to cover it. Maybe that's another program. Your next.
Well, listen, we can tuck into that in another time. But
Yeah.
I would say, as an introduction, in a nutshell, I am working very hard now to apply all the amazing adventure principles and skills and strategies that I've used around the world in some quite extraordinary contexts here at home, locally, to inspire, get people fired up, powered up, and crucially help integrate and connect that inspiration with action, because that's the tricky bit, because a lot of people don't know quite what to do, and it's not necessarily obvious how much stuff there is going on around. So I'm working on that, and I should probably write a whole load of books too, podcasts.
Who knows what? But we all know we need to change. We need some pathways, and we need some help, don't we? And certainly from people like yourself. Great job. Thank you very much. Thanks for your time. Until next time on the Climate Count.